Embarrassing. Floyd, you're 50 years old. You're a legend in the sport. I've stood up for you in countless interviews, but you have to stop embarrassing yourself with these.
Well, I think what happened with Floyd is, and this is where he played it smart. You know, you have to give credit where credit is due. Floyd, after he beat me, if you notice, he became Money Mayweather.
Yes.
Well, he became a businessman.
$1 million fight, and you know, I've already in the sport of boxing, I've already made somewhere upwards of 800 million.
You made money. You're gonna make a hell of a lot more money.
But the main thing is, I made smart investments, and I still make millions every month.
Just Google Floyd's name and the IRS. All the news is out there. He owes jewelers money. There's back paid rent for real estate in New York. It's clear that he is now part of the no money team, which is very ironic. And why is he doing this?
No, I don't know. Normally, people that are well off don't go back into a sport as barbaric as boxing at 48, X, Y, and Z. That's not normal. But everything doesn't have to make sense to me. It just has to make sense to him.
In the ruthless theater of professional boxing, an undefeated record is a monument, but a billion-dollar brand is a modern myth. 4 years, Floyd Mayweather flawlessly navigated both, transitioning from pretty boy to the iconic money moniker after his defining victory over Oscar De La Hoya. It was widely considered one of the most brilliant marketing pivots in sports history, a calculated illusion of limitless wealth, private jets.
Why are they fighting again? Why would you fight again? Why is Money Mayweather, who has reportedly made up over $1 billion? Now, that doesn't mean you're bringing it all home. That's not net. That is just in terms of revenue, in terms of the gates. The last fight between Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather made $668 million. Where reportedly Floyd Mayweather took home, what, 250 of that? So why is he fighting again, everybody says? Boy, people just telling themselves, why would you fight again if you made all that money? Because that means that people don't really want to fight, right? First thing first, we know that at the bottom of the pecking order, the bottom of all the athletic pyramid of success is fighting, right? UFC, boxing, that's the bottom of the barrel. That's the chitlin circuit. Like if you doing that, either A, your daddy was a fighter, or B, boy, you fighting for your life and your circumstances in this world. So few affluent fighters. Like, oh, we have wealth, we have money, we have success. So few just upper middle class fighters. Like, dog, you gotta be from it, the mud. So we all are telling ourselves when we see somebody fight, like, why are you fighting? Oh. So now we're going to the financial, and obviously there are a lot of reports out there that talks about his money. Now, what it doesn't say, it talks about his debt, it talks about some of his liabilities. What it doesn't tell you is his liquidity. What it doesn't tell you is what he has. Now, you don't know what he has. You can guess this. You can say he has these assets over here that aren't liquid. You can say he has this ownership over here. And then you don't know which way to go back and forth. So the guesswork to you and for me, it's not really the best play because it's not going to be fully informed. It's just like going to somebody's website right now and you going to see celebrity net worth. That's not true. Trust me. I've not met one person that their celebrity net worth is real. Like sometimes it's way higher, sometimes it's way lower.
And diamond-encrusted invincibility. However, the architecture of that facade is beginning to fracture under the weight of reality. Seasoned observers and former rivals like De La Hoya are now pointing to a tragic irony. The man who built an empire on the perception of financial supremacy is stepping back into the ring at nearly 50 years old, not to preserve his legacy.
You think he's talking this trash because he wants a rematch? Do you think he actually wants?
Absolutely.
You think he wants a rematch?
Look, another reason why he's crawled out of his rock, he needs money.
You think he needs money?
Absolutely.
He's always flossy.
It's absolutely, he needs money.
You think he's going
Once
broke?
Again, come on. Fighters like that always go broke.
He's always Fendi, so I guess.
Absolutely. Look, he's not fighting anymore, so that big money's not coming in. Look at what happened to Mike Tyson. He made what, $500 million?
Right.
You think you can't spend $500 million overnight? Absolutely.
You can.
I doubt he'll ever step into that ring. Floyd's a big freaking.
He called it the easiest win of his career.
Yeah, because he was 21 years old.
Right.
Of course. If I fought freaking Ryan Garcia, who's 19 years old, What am I going to do? I'm going to beat him easy because of my experience.
So fight him in his prime, he goes down, you see.
Easy.
What's your message to Floyd?
Floyd, stay under your rock, dude.
But out of a desperate, urgent necessity to survive. Intro 2. To understand the collapse of the Mayweather empire, one must analyze the harsh, unspoken economics of combat sports. Fighting is not a gentleman's leisure activity. It is a brutal trade born of necessity.
Mayweather never flies commercial. He's only flying private.
So he doesn't own his own plane?
I don't think so. I've never seen a Mayweather plane, like a Drake plane. I've never seen that. Not to say that he doesn't. I don't know Mayweather like that. I've never even met him. So I don't know. I mean, you have a lot of properties. You have a lot of money you're constantly spending.
Right.
I don't know. Remember at one point he said he was buying like the jewelry district building.
Yeah, and they said
that
they
wasn't
said that
true.
was yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know this man's finance, but this guy told me that Mayweather is in financial problems.
See, here's the shitty part about actually losing your money when you're on that level and you're, kind of like flossing, showing off. Nobody gives a shit. Like there are people actually praying for you to be broke. And then when you do go broke, that's what people are going to say. Yeah. Oh, well, you should have invested better. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to give him any loans. So now, we might see Mayweather doing.
People will give him some loans.
Maybe.
Listen, he's cozying up to Israel. That's
but
not
the
an
thing
accident.
about it is, he had Mayweather Promotions.
Yeah.
And he was hosting a big, he had Gervonta Davis under his cards. And so that's like
yeah, but
De La
look
Hoya
what happened to Gervonta.
Right.
Arrested,
so if you can sustain that, you don't ever have to box again. But now has to take fights because, when you floss like Mayweather, you can't go down.
Yeah.
You got to stay right there because people are going to peep any kind of chinks in your armor if you're not wearing 3 or 4 big $1 million diamond chains.
Analysts routinely point out that boxing sits at the absolute bottom of the athletic pyramid, a grueling circuit where individuals fight for their lives and to escape their circumstances. The concept of an athlete who has genuinely banked $1 billion voluntarily returning to take punches defies all sporting logic. While blockbuster events like the clash with Manny Pacquiao generated over $600 million in revenue, the actual net take-home pay is a fraction of that astronomical.
But Floyd Mayweather is the one that seems like he needs the money more right now. Our guy, Andreas Hale, wrote a story that went somewhat viral. That's crazy, the laugh faces. Although Floyd Mayweather Jr. made hundreds of millions of dollars from his professional boxing career and topped the Forbes list as the highest paid athlete from 2012 to 2014, the boxer is said to have been shortchanged and filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Showtime. The lawsuit filed Tuesday, and obtained by ESPN seeks to recover hundreds of millions of dollars, misappropriated funds, and damages resulting from a long-running and elaborate scheme of financial fraud, breaches in fiduciary duty, and conspiracy orchestrated by Floyd J. Mayweather's former manager and advisor, Al Heyman, with the knowing and substantial participation and aid of defendants Showtime Networks and Steven Espinoza. Mayweather, who's 48, says he is owed at least $340 million and cites a complex web of hidden accounts, unauthorized transactions, and deliberate concealment of financial records as the reason he believes he's been defrauded from those funds. Heyman is not named as a defendant in the complaint, which is interesting because I misspoke and said he sued Al Heyman. He's essentially saying that Showtime and Al Heyman colluded to not pay him with Steven Espinoza, but then he doesn't name Heyman in the suit. Very odd. Anyway, it's a mess. And for those people that always thought that Floyd Mayweather had financial troubles because of the money he owed to the IRS, because of the terrible, terrible business and real estate investments that he's made, and apparently some of these have gone under and he is owed back rent, or he is owing back rent, and he is delinquent on a lot of payments for a lot of different things right now. These things seem to have added up for Floyd. And now it's pretty apparent that not only is he doing these, bank robbery style exhibitions, but it looks like he absolutely needs to do it, which is very, very sad. Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Floyd Mayweather as an individual outside of the ring, but I never want to see athletes have their money mismanaged or mismanage their own money so badly that they go broke in retirement. And it looks like that's kind of what's happening. And here's a snippet from Business Insider because it made me want to pay for the entire article. Business Insider is reporting that Floyd Mayweather could be facing money trouble, citing an estimated $54 million in debt, property foreclosures, multiple lawsuits piling up. Mayweather's attorney strongly denies he's in any kind of financial distress, but the headlines aren't slowing down. $54 million alleged dollars in debt. So it makes sense why they would want to do this.
Gross. The uncomfortable truth echoing through the industry is that truly wealthy men do not step back into the blood-soaked canvas of a boxing ring unless the well has completely run dry. The trap of the money Mayweather persona is that it demands a constant, agonizingly high flow of liquid cash to maintain. While
maybe more.
How does he owe you the money? Why don't you just like...
Here's what happened. He pre-sold the fight using my likeness to some company in, I think, Dubai or like the Middle East. This is my understanding of it. For $10 million cash. We ended up doing the fight in the States with a different company. That is the company that put on the fight. That is the company that paid me. But he sold our fight with my name and likeness to someone else in Dubai for $10 million cash. It's our fight, bro. Our deal was 15%. He smoked me. So I got 15% of it. 15% of $10 million is $1.5 million. That company that paid him that money is suing him. I actually don't know the status on that lawsuit. I should check in because he still owes me money, but he has a bunch of legal trouble at the moment that I don't think I'm ever getting the money.
He just sold his house in Vegas.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I think he's facing a bunch.
Rinsed on that house. He started at $14 million.
The public is bombarded with images of supreme wealth. The distinction between unliquidated assets and actual cash on hand is the silent killer of athletes. Experts note that when a fighter builds their entire psychological armor out of million-dollar diamond chains and sports cars, they cannot afford to show a single chink in that armor. They must constantly project extreme wealth.
He's used to having the refs do whatever he wants, and he wasn't getting his way this time. It was so embarrassing. Floyd, you're 50 years old. You're a legend in the sport. I've stood up for you in countless interviews, including Shannon Sharp's podcast last week. But you have to stop embarrassing yourself with these exhibitions. I know life is hard. I know life is expensive. But come on, dude, put your legacy first. Nobody wants to remember you like this. And it gets worse. Your jeweler filed a lawsuit against you in Miami. And many are saying you're going to have to sell off your assets. I hate seeing this happen, bro. As I've always said, it's hard to make money, but it's even harder to keep it. Floyd, I'm rooting for you. Come on, let's turn it around.
Because the moment the spending stops, the brand dies. But beneath the surface of celebrity net worth estimates, there is a starkly different reality. Mayweather's empire is reportedly suffocating under liabilities, proving that you can generate hundreds of millions in revenue and still find yourself trapped in a vicious cycle of spending just to prove you aren't broke. When a flamboyant icon begins to financially bleed, the environment around them turns predatory. The tragedy of flaunting untouchable wealth is that it alienates the very public that funds it. Observers note
there's the Let's Get Floyd Back in Pocket campaign that goes on where, you know, it's $300,000 chains being bought and buying the new Lamborghini and all these new things. And I'm sitting there going, yo, when you gonna give me the money?
Because you're already invested.
Right, like when you gonna give me your half of the money back. But I ain't trying to press him because he just got out of jail, right? So it's like, let him cool his heels before you.
Was that in the millions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you sitting there big and I'm like, yo, so when, but see, the fighters are an asset in themselves. They are that talent, regardless. Right. You know, so I'm looking at him going, so there ain't no pressure there, but I'm saying, when is he going to say he wants to, you know, to give me the other half of it? Why I got to ask you for it?
Right.
And then when he...
Are we talking over 2 million?
It's about that.
Oh, okay.
At that point, it was, you know, invested in.
All right.
So look, he goes, when he finally does bring up the actual, the situation, he acted like he didn't know anything. Like, I didn't tell y'all to do that. I didn't tell you to do that.
Oh man.
And I'm looking at him and he looked in my face and he tell me to do that.
How did it get to where we started reading just the tweets? Because it seemed like that, like I would think that y'all could pick up the phone and say, hey man, you know, what's going down here, as opposed to, you know, I respect the shooter and fuck boys and you know what I'm saying?
That's not Floyd. Floyd don't tweet.
Wow.
That's not him on Instagram. He got somebody next to him. See, everybody around him's codependent. Mm-hmm. So they're going to roll with what he says.
That when a figure who has spent decades mocking the financial status of his opponents finally falls on hard times, the world does not offer sympathy. It offers a harsh reckoning. There are no corporate bailouts or friendly loans for an aging.
February 3rd, 2026, Floyd Mayweather filed a lawsuit in California against Showtime Networks and Steven Espinoza, claiming they helped his former advisor, Al Heyman, misappropriate a huge chunk of his fight earnings to the tune of $340 million. Mayweather says the money is still missing and unaccounted for, and he's now suing Showtime and Espinoza for aiding and abetting breach of fiduciary duty, civil conspiracy to commit fraud. Ooh, it's a serious accusation there. Conversion, unjust enrichment, and he's seeking punitive damage on top of the missing $340 million. So why is Floyd suing it, and what is he claiming? Well, Floyd argues that during his legendary career, where he generated $1 billion in revenue plus and pay-per-view money, a significant portion of the funds that he made through those events, through his fights, didn't make it into his hands because they were funneled through accounts controlled by his then advisor, Al Heyman. Now, Mayweather says that Showtime delivered those checks and funds through systems that helped Heyman get the money instead of paying Floyd directly. The lawsuit also points to some of boxing's biggest pay-per-view fights, including fights against Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor, events that generated hundreds of millions in revenue. Mayweather's legal team said he generated hundreds of millions in revenue for Showtime and now wants to recover what he claims was unfairly taken.
Boxer who built his kingdom on arrogance. Without the massive pay-per-view influx of his prime, Mayweather is allegedly finding that his real estate investments and promotional endeavors are not enough to sustain the inferno of his spending habits, leaving him entirely isolated as the walls of debt close in around him.
And why are we attempting to tease Floyd? Is Floyd? Yes, he's broke. Of course he's broke. He's a boxer. Did they say can't read? That's not to tease him. They say that he can't read. His best friend at the time said that he can't read, and he never denied it. I don't tease him for it. He was a guy who grew up in a boxing gym, right? It's one of these things. You know what you know. You know what you were taught. I didn't teach him about contracts. I didn't teach him about saving. I didn't teach him about investments. Who would have taught him these things? Of course he's broke. He's a gambling addict. He's got baby mamas all over the... What do you mean is he broke? Of course he's broke. What boxer do you know that isn't broke? What a ridiculous question.
Whispers of financial ruin have recently materialized into concrete, devastating legal filings. The most glaring crack in the money facade comes from the very jewelry that defined his era. A high-profile lawsuit from a Miami jeweler.
Asking the question, look, I've told you until I'm blue in the face, the numbers that you hear in boxing simply aren't true. Floyd made $1 billion. No, he didn't. Floyd and Conor made $500 million. No, they didn't. Of course they didn't. Nobody's ever confirmed that. Literally nobody. It's the same thing with boxing pay-per-view. Whatever boxing pay-per-view is the biggest boxing pay-per-view of all time is just whoever put out the press release and lied more than the person before them. These have never been confirmed by leadership of a publicly traded company. Who is the one that supplies the pay-per-view? It is illegal for them to lie. You have never heard Time Warner. You have never heard Cox. You have never heard DirecTV. You have never heard an executive come out and confirm any of the absurd pay-per-view numbers that you believe to be true. And it's the same thing with the check. I got $100 million for a fight. Oh, you did? Who signed the check? Whoever signed the check is going to want credit for it. There's never been a time that $1 million check was written and the dude that wrote the check didn't make sure that somebody found out he wrote the check. So who wrote the check? Floyd's got a whole bunch of them, apparently. He got $1 billion. Who wrote the check? And I'm only sharing with you, like, the numbers aren't what you think they are, right? The numbers are good and they made a lot of money, but it's not what you think it is. And yeah, of course Floyd's broke. Would you be boxing if you weren't? And it's very tough to be sympathetic to Floyd. So Floyd is arguing that he was robbed by Showtime. That he had a deal that Showtime didn't argue. He's arguing this. And who's making that argument and where that goes? I'm just sharing, like, in public opinion, it's very hard to be sympathetic towards Floyd when Floyd,
like Oscar De La Hoya, issues stark, harrowing warnings drawn from their own brutal exits from the sport. Boxing eventually takes everything back, and Father Time remains the only truly undefeated force. If Mayweather continues to view the ring as an ATM to fund his legal battles and sustain an unsustainable image, he is risking something far more valuable than his bank account: his physical health and his neurological future. The tragedy of the money persona is that it requires an endless sacrifice. By refusing to let the illusion die, Mayweather is placing his 50-0 legacy and his very life in the crosshairs of a sport that shows mercy to absolutely no one.